I commandeer this stolen money by order of the
law! Remember the name Muhammad!
Let's go!
So we were just talking before the show. Tiz possibly almost drinking the secret juice, which may or may not be made with tap water that has been just sitting in a room for however many months. And yeah. I don't think anybody would want to drink of our secret juice. I don't know what's in Paolo's.
You don't see what kind of brand water this is, but shout out to it anyways. It's probably some local
that's not even the water though. Like it was an empty water bottle and filled with secret juice, aka tap water. But after all the time it's been
our
here,
secret juice.
Yeah, and finally the people know the true secret of the Hurt Handbook. But what wasn't a secret was last pay-per-view that we just had, UFC 304. And, I mean, honestly, some of the results were insane. Some of the finishes were insane. And I feel like it's just a good idea to hop right into the main event, if I do say so myself. And for those who don't know, Belal Muhammad defeated Leon Edwards via unanimous decision, 2 48-47s and a 49-46, to finally silence most of his haters. And he wins the UFC welterweight title. And I personally just thought Belal had a great performance. I know that the scorecards, 3 rounds to 2, if you didn't see the fight, you would maybe think, oh, well, it was closer than it seemed. Not really. Leon had his moments in round 3 and round 5 that gave him those rounds. But overall, Belal's pace was just insane. He walked Leon down constantly. The wrestling looked phenomenal. The ground control was great. I mean, dude, Leon fought Colby. And Colby couldn't keep Leon down, but Belal could. And then even the boxing dude in close range, I thought he looked incredible. It was a great performance.
We should really talk more about Belal's stand-up game in this one, even though he really didn't even obviously have to rely on it as much to win this fight, because he overwhelmed Leon Edwards anyways in all facets of the game. But it seems like he's, for a guy who's claiming that he's gonna, he can beat GSP and that he's gonna be in those conversations soon when his career is done. He better keep fighting fights like this. But even though people are still not gonna give him that credit because he doesn't finish fights, but this was still, there was nothing you could really say or take away from him anyways afterwards. Like, everybody clearly saw, like, no matter how much you might want to ride with Leon Edwards, Belal made this one very clear and decisive, and that's all I really appreciate at the end of the day. We've seen it obviously plenty of times this year and in the past, and judges will screw you, so I don't like those closer fights that are tougher to score. And I
thought it was a pretty clear 3-2 personally, but and like, you think about the age factor too. Belal's 36 and he beat a 32-year-old Leon Edwards who's literally in the midst of his prime. And I know people can't stand Belal, and like sometimes I get it, like he'll say some stuff where you're like scratching your head, maybe like the GSP comment, but now he's the champ. He has a chance to prove that, and like you said, it is on him. I think it's an interesting result. I'm not sure exactly what I thought going into this fight because, the first fight happened, Leon was really piecing him up, and then the eye poke happened, and it was a no contest. So I figured that Leon was going to have a big advantage on the feet like he did in that fight, but Belal is clearly improved in that sense. I mean, like I said, his boxing was really good and definitely helped him complement that strong wrestling game. But just for him to finally get here, like, he's not had an easy road. The UFC has not built Belal Muhammad into the champion he is today, and that's what he is. He's a champion, as much as his haters don't want to think about that. Now his name is etched in UFC history forever, no matter what happens in his next fight. And I'm honestly, I'm happy for him. I really am. And like I said, I know a lot of people hate him, but I think he's a good dude. He's a good fighter. So it's good to see a guy like that win, like overcoming all that adversity to finally get the title shot and beat a prime Leon Edwards who has really looked like a great welterweight champion at times, and now his reign's over and Bilal's reign begins. And for in terms of who's next for Bilal, I think Shavkat seems like the simple answer, right? I don't know if there's any other names that you have in your head.
No, yeah, I'm in agreement with everyone, but when you think about Bilal Muhammad himself, he's clearly not the guy who's gonna come off as someone that's not gonna speak his mind. Like, he clearly is the guy who's pretty outspoken and like knows what he wants and stuff. I think he maybe addressed it in like passing or whatever. Probably said something along the lines of like he doesn't choose the challengers or whatever, but he'll probably hear a lot of this Shavkat talk and probably want to see him prove himself. Like, probably win like another fight first before he decides to put his title on the line against them. Because
I think about it like this though too, and you wonder, because he's a competitor, and so you have to imagine that this is in his mind. If he can beat Shavkat, who's undefeated with all finishes, that would give him a bit of credit.
I think he's the right guy to beat Shavkat. Like, you saw with this fight, clearly Bilal Muhammad's got an amazing base as a wrestler, as a grappler, and he can, may not be, obviously is strong enough to overpower Leon Edwards, but when you got Shavkat across from him, and then we even talk about this in a little bit, he didn't waste any time talking about moving up and fighting for another belt at middleweight.
Oh, did he say that? I didn't see that.
Yeah, he wants DDP at some point, but
I'm glad he's realistic enough to say, but let me get some work done at welterweight. People, they get wrapped up in the headlines with Bilal. You'll see, he said what? But when you really, listen to him talk, he's just very confident. He believes in himself. And, I mean, clearly he deserves to believe in himself that much. I mean, look what he just did. It's, but overall, he is fairly, respectful of the people, around him, even if he doesn't necessarily like them. Maybe besides Colby. I think he hates Colby. He might just fight Colby just so he could beat him up. But I don't know about that one. I don't think Colby's close to a title shot. But then again, who knows with him, right? But I don't know. Overall, I think Shavkat might be the number one option, just because there's not really a clear pick right now, and Bilal doesn't seem like the type who wants to sit on the sidelines for a while the division is moving around him. He seems like he's very eager to prove himself to not only the fans but also his haters. And good on him, because he won this round, you know what I mean? He's a champion.
No, I think he's a guy to take Shavkat 0, but I think more of how would he do it? Would he be able to make? I don't think something like cardio would be in question, but
I think his cardio is a factor, though. I mean, he's got the pace to.
Yeah, I think he could apply what he used in this fight against Leon. Just come forward, work, just can continue to improve that boxing. Just we'll see if it gets even better than how it showed in this fight, which was obviously still really good. And he comes forward and backs a Shavkat up against the cage, and maybe stuff some takedowns and stuff. He can drag Shavkat into those deep waters through 5 rounds, and next thing you know, Shavkat gasses out at some point. So
I mean, what Bilal did to Leon Edwards was basically what Colby Covington wanted to do to Leon Edwards, if you think about it. I think that's kind of funny when you think about where they both are right now.
Well, I think that goes. I mean, that's a testament to who Bilal trains with, and just the kind of fighter he is when it comes to fight IQ. Just
training with Khabib definitely has to help.
Yeah, man, exactly. So that's just how I feel. Because it goes without saying at this point, the whole world knows now that he's not the flashiest guy, but hey, it got him all the way to a welterweight title opportunity, and now he's the champion. So,
like I said, no one gave Bilal this opportunity.
A main event of a pay-per-view. Yeah.
Got me pretty good to get there,
he came in the hostile territory and he took his belt. So
yeah,
and that, I think we should talk about it, honestly, because I feel like we shouldn't let Leon Edwards off the hook a little bit here, because he did look really sluggish and just like a step behind the whole time. And it was just disappointing in that sense, because the talk of the town is how this card was happening at 5 in the morning in the UK, and those fans, you could obviously tell, were probably super tired to that point, and now they've got to watch Belal, obviously, for 5 rounds, dominate Leon, so they're obviously probably not pleased, and
the whole thing, Leon said he was feeling tired, and I get that, but I don't even know if he probably didn't really mean it as like an excuse, because you know how the headlines get taken out of context.
Yeah.
But it's not like Belal was in the U.S. for this fight. Like he was fighting at 5 a.m. too. Like the same thing that affected him had to have affected Belal. Like you're in another country and you're fighting at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, whatever time it was there. Like I don't know. I feel like the way that people are taking it is like as an excuse, and maybe I don't think he meant it that way, but if he did, it's just an interesting way to put it, because like I said, his opponent had to fight at the exact same time, so it's not like you're equal again. So that's my thing. Maybe Belal just handled it better.
Yeah, well, especially...
It's tough. I'm not saying it's not tough. I do want to be clear about that. Like, imagine me or you getting up at 6 in the morning and we just got to fight. Like, it's insane.
I think of, we'll talk about the fight itself, obviously, right after this, but I think of Tom Aspinall, and he's obviously from the UK, too, so he imagined how, he'd be able to get some sleep, during the day, and then obviously be awake for the fight itself, but he was he was laying in bed, and instead of actually getting sleep, he was kind of just thinking in his head, daydreaming to himself of all the possible scenarios, the way his fight could go with Curtis Blaydes, and so he was like, nothing was gonna surprise me anyways, and Tom Aspinall just gets another handy dandy finish. But I think, I'm not saying that Leon had an excuse, but Leon's probably with him being from the UK and all, is where all those all the fans and whatnot, they're over there tired and whatnot at this really early time, and it's just not used to obviously having to defend, not only fight but defend a world title at that time. So I don't know, but
we were talking about this a little before the pod, and after this I think we'll probably get to the Aspinall stuff, but do you think that Leon Edwards maybe overlooked Belal Muhammad a little bit because of how the first fight was going?
No, yeah, that's pretty fair. I think that's pretty fair to say, honestly, because for one, I don't think Leon Edwards obviously doesn't expect to have to be fighting from behind and having to get those. He's obviously we know obviously Belal is the guy that's gonna fight all 5 rounds. He's gonna get those points and whatnot. So I don't think Leon Edwards really expects to be fighting from behind, but he probably just expects to cut off the cage from Belal and really try to bring. Now I wouldn't even say Belal forward, because we said before, Belal just walked him down. So I think Leon Edwards probably expects he's gonna cut off the cage from Belal, and at some point he's gonna put a combo together and he's gonna TKO him that way. But Belal,
I think he was kind of forced to fight off the back foot in a sense, and he can wait and counter, he is good at that, but Belal had so much activity and was constantly in his face, and it's kind of hard to counter somebody who's always moving, feinting, throwing these just quick punches, quick combinations, shooting for a takedown, going in the clinch. Belal, there's so much, you wouldn't think it because of all of the decisions, but he really does give you quite a bit to think about. And I think that pace truly is his biggest strength, that cardio, that pace. And in reality, it kind of won him this fight, along with some really good technical.
Well, that's why, so the first fight, obviously, to end in a no contest was pretty shitty, obviously, because it
in
was.
Hindsight, yeah.
Because I think from the beginning, those two obviously made a very good matchup for each other, and so now that they're fighting again for a belt, obviously 5 rounds. I think you really wanted to see Leon just apply more of just how well he's able to circle and obviously never stand in one spot, and just because Leon Edwards also gives guys a lot to think about, and we know Leon, obviously he's got a finish in his back pocket at any given moment too. A headshot dead is not for nothing. So when you got Bilal across from you, and Bilal's the one, because the saying it takes two to dance. Like Bilal's the one who's pretty much orchestrating everything, and he's not only is he stronger than Leon Edwards in there, but he's just doing a lot more activity. He seems a lot more engaged and just ready to go execute a game plan. And Leon just was more or less trying to adapt to that. And it's unfortunate because, you want to see the guy, we want to see how dominant of a champion we have. But, here we are now in the Bully B era. So
yeah, and who knows? Maybe we'll see a rematch in 3 years.
Yeah,
like
3 years.
I thought that was great. Did you think that was good too? I thought that was really funny considering
dude,
how long
he
this fight was.
he can say whatever now. He can say whatever.
I laughed at that one. I'm like, I know his haters aren't liking that one, but all right, man. Let's hop into the co-main event because I know people definitely want to hear about this too. Tom Aspinall starches Curtis Blaydes in basically a minute with some beautifully timed and lightning fast punches. And, I really just want to start off by saying that I really believe that Tom Aspinall is just a different breed of heavyweight. He's truly like a new school athlete. He moves like a welterweight, but still has that heavyweight power. And this fight was another one that proved it. I think I saw on Instagram that he, in his last 4 fights, his octagon time is like 3 minutes and 37 seconds, which is crazy. But, Blaydes, he's a really good fighter. He deserved to be in this situation, and I thought it was long overdue that he got a form of a title shot. And Aspinall just made that one look easy because he was just faster in reality and more technical.
I think to add on to what you just said about this new breed of heavyweight, that I feel like this is something we're seeing more and more of from these, I won't even say like newer guys, but obviously these younger guys, these more slimmer looking heavyweights like Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. I feel like that's kind of like a testament to someone like Francis, for instance. Someone like Francis who's obviously huge and could decapitate you at any given moment, and we saw plenty of that. But there was questions about Francis's wrestling as well, and it was the Gane fight where he brought out the knee pads, and we saw that wrestling a lot more, and he dominated, obviously. But
that was such a forgettable main event.
Yeah,
like it was really so like Francis. We knew they wanted to make the Jones fight, but the UFC wasn't trying to do it because I think at the time John wanted too much money, and for some reason they were just really just not behind Francis. And then obviously Francis leaves, which is crazy while being the champion. But yeah, that was interesting. I'm glad you brought that fight up, honestly. I haven't thought about that in a while.
Guys, that's just how I feel about I think like Francis is kind of like the forefront of that, just like this new breed of heavyweight, that guys that they're not like they understand who's across from them, and that they can get they could get their lights turned out at any given moment, so they're not going to play around with their food, and they're going to try to it takes that one heavy punch pretty much along with the technique that they already bring to the table. So when I watch Tom Aspinall fight a fight like this where Curtis Blaydes, even it's not to say that Curtis Blaydes even looked bad, really. Like, Tom Aspinall is just the better fighter at this point in time, and that's perfectly fine. That's really good for Tom Aspinall to coming back from a knee injury and looking better than ever and stuff. And I think everyone should feel now that he is the true undisputed champion at this point.
Well, see, I don't feel like that though. I don't. I hate how people are saying, because I want the fight between Jones and Aspinall to happen more than anything. You know that. But, Jones is the champ.
Yeah, but
as far
the thing
as I'm
is,
concerned, until Aspinall beats him.
For John to win the belt, I think is obviously one thing. That's something we obviously all needed to see for, to really feel assured about him being the greatest of all time. But what people, and then I'll even say myself now, too, because of what I just said, for it to be an inactive challenger like Cyril Gane, for instance. And now we still haven't seen John defend the belt yet. And now the talks are about him fighting Stipe, who obviously Stipe is on his last legs, and even Stipe might retire right after that fight whenever it happens. Yeah, I think more or less probably I feel this way because of Tom Aspinall's call out, like DC giving him the opportunity pretty much to call John Jones directly out.
You know DC loves doing that. DC loves doing that. No, that was
like,
great.
John, I think I'm better than you.
Yeah, that was a good call out. I liked it. Because he said it was very respectful, but it was like to the point. He's like, I respect you. Like, I don't have a problem personally with you, but I just think I can beat you. I was like, it doesn't get much simpler than that. You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying, and this, like Tom Aspinall said at the press conference too, he doesn't want any other fight other than Stipe or John Jones unless both of them retire.
Yeah.
So for me, that says like, well, neither of them have anything to prove anyways. So
you mean Jones and Stipe or Jones and Aspinall?
Jones and Stipe, just for their like overall legacies as two of the greatest of all time already. Yeah. Like that's stamped, and I don't think anything's gonna change that. It's just that, now obviously John Jones took on this new challenge to come up to heavyweight and win that title, and yeah, it's just now it's at the point where, well, we have an interim champion and a guy who's obviously super hungry and up on the rise, has still got youth to him, and is taking out these top contenders just like John Jones did back in his day as a light heavyweight. Like, it's just at that point in time where Tom Aspinall, he'll even call out Alex Pereira at this point, and it's at the point where Tom Aspinall is going to want that pound for pound status at some point. So he'll call out Alex Pereira and be like, let's do a one night stand of heavyweight.
The tournament, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny idea. That'll never happen, but
yeah.
I wish it would. By the old UFC 1 diehard fans definitely are hoping that happens. But yeah, I don't know, because I want to see Jones fight Aspinall. I personally think that's the bigger fight for all the reasons that you're saying. But what it is that John Jones, does he need to fight Tom Aspinall? No, definitely not. No, if he retires, whether he wins or loses against Stipe, let's say he wins and retires. I don't think people are going to be looking at that whole resume and being like, well, he got Tom Aspinall. That's what it is, and that's no disrespect to Aspinall either, but it's just John. He's done everything. What
it is with John Jones is, and this is to speak for Dana too, because obviously we know Dana White he's not gonna hesitate for a second to come to John Jones' defense no matter what. What it is they want to preserve John Jones' legacy so bad as just guy that has never been beaten just anywhere in the cage, and so they'll go as far to bring back up the Matt Hamill fight and want to get that. They want to get that decision.
That should get overturned.
Yeah, they want to get that overturned. But it's what I'm trying to say is it's been so long at this point too, and it's I saw someone, Matt Hamill himself, talking about oh well, if you want to, then give me the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title. It's that's literally
not gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen. No
that
way.
Was an insane thing that he said, by the way, as if you could just watch. He got TKO'd. That's why he won.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that I'm glad you brought that up because that pissed me off.
Well, it's not. Because isn't it in general that the illegal knee rule isn't that getting that overturned or something anyways? Going forward.
That with John and Hamill, it was 12-6 elbows. But you're also right.
Yeah, my bad.
They're changing that rule, and they're changing what constitutes a grounded opponent. Basically, if you have your hands on, if you're just putting your hand on the ground so they don't knee you, they can knee you now, or they can.
Okay. Yeah.
You're not considered fully grounded, which I think is a good. Both of those rules I think are good. I always thought the 12-6 elbow thing was stupid because you can elbow a guy like this, you can kick him in the head, you can fly and knee him. You're telling me that this really brings way more damage than that? If anything, you'd be taking less punishment because you'd probably knock someone out by doing that. I mean, that was stupid what I just said, but you get what I mean. it's you're going to be taking less strikes most likely, because I think if you're getting hit with this, the ref's going to stop it right away. But you can take a couple elbows, here and there, but 12 to 6s, I think that's a fight finisher where the ref has to step in at this point. So I feel like, that fight, I think that should be overturned, especially now that the rules getting changed.
So I think is because
going back to the original.
Yeah, because because of how important it is to preserve John Jones's legacy like that as the greatest mixed martial artist ever is like why not to say that, and because people are gonna still find ways to disrespect and be like, yo, he's ducking Tom Aspinall. Is like,
I don't think that's the case.
I think
either.
More realistic case is that John Jones just vacates the belt, and how would that even work? Pretty much like Tom Aspinall would just be.
I think he'd be promoted to champ, because that's kind of what happened when. So, because you weren't a fan at this point, in like 2018. So when GSP beat Bisping for the title, actually that was late 2017. Then GSP retired. Whitaker was already the interim champion because he won the belt at UFC 213 a few months earlier. And so when GSP retired, they just moved Whitaker up. So I feel like that's probably what will happen in this case. Sense. But, I want to see that fight more. And that's no disrespect to Stipe. I mean, who knows? Stipe could win this fight. You can't count out a guy like Stipe either, no matter how old he is. But the way I feel about John Jones, I've said this many times, until I see someone beat John Jones, I will never pick against John Jones. And that includes Tom Aspinall. And anybody who's been watching us for a long time knows that me and you think the world of Tom Aspinall. And I think that Aspinall is a guy who could possibly take that O. But until I see someone do it, I just can't disrespect
and then
Jones.
anyways...
Because people are disrespecting him. You can't, disagree with that, right? Like, you see in the comments, like you said, that people were saying Jones is ducking him. I'm like, I don't think John Jones is afraid of anybody. I think he's a shrewd businessman in a sense, and he knows that the Stipe fight is a big legacy fight. When you look at those resumes, Stipe is going to be a name. You know what I mean? Aspinall's still on the rise, and obviously if he beats Jones, then that's a huge boost for him. But right now, like you said, what does it really do for his resume if he beats Tom Aspinall?
Yeah, John Jones might be a nutcase, but he does have that. He does have that perspective to him.
That was great.
Yeah,
I love you just dropped that. He's a nutcase, but no. You know what video of him that I love? And this wasn't a nutty thing to do, obviously, because someone was by his house. Have you ever see that video from his security cameras where the guy is kind of sneaking up by his garage and stuff, and then he goes out of view, and then maybe 5 seconds later you just see him running, and then it's John Jones running with a shotgun. It's crazy.
Why the fuck would you ever do that at John Jones' house? Man?
Quite literally the last person you'd want to do that to. Not only is this dude literally the greatest fighter of all time, who's still the heavyweight champion.
Yeah,
but also he's a pretty good shot.
Now
from
you
what
put
I know.
a shotgun in his hand.
Yeah, and he's also got that big German Shepherd too. So it's just, it might be the most dangerous place on the planet besides military bases.
That's terrifying. Oh my god.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, dude. He's a nutcase, but I think you put it perfectly. He's a shrewd businessman. Him and Dana obviously clearly have that. I mean, it is interesting. Maybe the relationship isn't obviously the most formidable, but obviously they have that much respect for each other that they just understand how important just what they've both done obviously for the sport is, and they understand how just how transcendent it is, and years from now what they've done for UFC is it's gonna last forever pretty much. So that's pretty much how that goes. People I think a lot of us fans we get closed-minded, and it's oh well, why would we? I think people obviously still want to see that Stipe fight, but it's more or less just how much the fight's being put off, and when we're actually gonna get to see it, if it's actually gonna happen in November in Madison Square Garden. So hopefully
this is my pure just unadulterated thoughts. I think John Jones should fight Tom Aspinall because Tom Aspinall is the rightful interim champion, number one contender. The fight on paper needs to happen, but I also get why he's gonna fight Stipe first. And to put it, bring you back, when the only reason why Tom Aspinall right now is interim champion is because Jones versus Stipe got canceled in the first place. And I think that the UFC doesn't want to do that to Stipe by robbing him of the fight, because it's a big payday and Stipe's also done a lot for the company. And that's what I love about Aspinall too. He wants this fight so bad, as he should, but he hasn't disrespected either John or Stipe this whole time. He's like, I get why they want to do that fight. I just think I deserve it more, and I think I will beat John or Stipe. And I'm like, I don't disagree with him. That's good. He should feel that way. And I want Aspinall to get that title shot, and I hope he does. I hope we do get to see Jones-Aspinall or Stipe versus Aspinall, and neither of them just ride into the sunset. I don't know how likely that is, but you got to hold out hope, because Aspinall, he deserves to prove himself against one of these huge names. But if not, he'll probably just be promoted anyway. So Aspinall's in a great position right now if you think about it, because the fans are all behind him. They all want to see it. And even if he doesn't get the fight and he doesn't lose a fight in the meantime, which I don't think he will, because I don't think they're going to give him another fight in the meantime, he'll just get promoted to champion anyway. So he's truly, there's not much that could happen to Tom Aspinall where he loses out, because he's either going to get the big shot, whether it's against Jones or Stipe, or he's probably going to get just promoted anyway. So
love Tom Aspinall. Yeah, we all love Tom Aspinall, man. For him to finish Curtis Blaydes that quickly, I'm pretty sure Curtis Blaydes, right before he got knocked down, he got a left in there, and Tom pretty much just ate it, and
I think that's what opened him up a bit.
Yeah,
because it seemed like he landed the shot, and then he was like, "Oh, I can hit him!" And then he kind of just went forward, and
it's such a impressive hybrid blend of just technique and power and precision, timing, all of it. He's just an incredible, super smart fighter, and
I think when he's undisputed champion, no matter what happens, and I do say when because I'm that certain, I think that he's gonna have a nice long title reign. I really do, because his style, man, it's just unreal.
That's the thing. So if we see a fight between him and John Jones, it's dude, I don't think either of them.
It's a tough fight for John Jones.
Man. I don't think Tom Aspinall knocks John Jones down, but it's more. I can't say the same with. I can't say the same for I don't know. I can't. If John, yeah.
No, I bet you mean Jones, you think that Aspinall would knock John down, or
I don't think Tom Aspinall would knock John Jones down, but I can't say the same for. I don't think John Jones would knock Tom Aspinall down, because
I think they both got a shot. And the thing with Aspinall too, people just they see his striking because he knocks these guys out so quick. But this dude has an insane wrestling and jiu-jitsu game too.
Like you said, which is how every true fan should feel. Until you see John Jones lose, then you can't bet against John Jones.
That's how I feel. I've seen him.
So I think
too many guys,
Yeah, I think Tom would kind of get dragged. Not to say he would get dragged into the deep water like John Jones would bring that out of him, but I think John would obviously be such a tough fight, anyways, that it's Tom would have to weather all those 5 rounds and literally find any sort of opening to put John away, and just obviously the cardio is already in question at that point anyways, and so
John's such a tough fight, because John, he does so many things that the details are what really hurts you. He has those oblique kicks where he extends the leg, he always hits you with the jab, he has nice teeps, he keeps you off of him, and the thing with Tom Aspinall, he's fast, but John Jones is so technically
Tom's
sound.
fast, exactly. Tom has got that speed like that, and he's able to put it together with his timing. But I think John might not be the fastest, but he's obviously ridiculously powerful, and
he's got so much experience too. He's beaten everybody.
He puts any strike wherever he wants it, and then if you want to even bring up the Cyril for him to submit Cyril Gane, it's
he did it easily. Yeah. There was not a second in that fight where it felt like Surreal had any chance.
It's like yeah, it's clear. It's like
it's just different, man. Both of these guys are
mofo.
I want to see this fight, man, because I say to myself, in the current climate of heavyweight, if there's anyone who's gonna take John Jones's technically you know what I mean. If anyone's gonna beat John Jones, I think it would be Tom Aspinall. But that's not me picking him because
I think
can't pick against.
That's
Jones.
why I think now that you have an interim champion, like it is very important to see whether or not he could stack up with either Stipe or John Jones, the two of the greatest to ever do it, and pretty much like carry the torch from that point forward.
I hope if John does beat Stipe, I hope his ego wants him to beat Aspinall. Like I hope he hears everything and is like, let me fight.
It would be super hard for him, I feel like, to stay away. So that's why it's
because if he retires, there's gonna be the haters who are gonna be like he's ducking him.
Exactly. So that's why it's at this point in time where it's like, hell, he doesn't have to fight him anyways, but now it's at the point where it's like
if the fan demand is so high, he might have to consider it. But who knows? I mean, like we've said plenty of times in this whole conversation. As much as we want to see Tom Aspinall fight John Jones really doesn't have anything to prove at this point. But good fight, good win. Well, yeah, I was just saying, not really a great fight in terms of how long it lasted, but good win for Tom Aspinall. And let's hope he gets that title shot against Jones or Stipe. But either way, like I said, he's winning in the end, hopefully. So, all right, I say we move on to the next one. We got another big fight to talk about because Paddy Pimblett, he fought King Green, a.k.a. Bobby Green, for those who aren't aware of the name change. He puts it's hard for me to even get it. Paddy put King Green to sleep with a just beautiful triangle arm bar. And, I was thoroughly impressed by this win because Bobby Green is a dog. And, he may not have the greatest fight IQ, like shooting for the takedown when he did was a bit bizarre, but Paddy was landing a few leg kicks here and there, and you have to wonder how good they are because he does have pretty good kicks, honestly. But to get that submission that easily against a guy like that, I think he's the first dude to submit him since 2009. So Paddy Pimblett kind of proves himself in a sense. He gets the ranking next to his name, and that's going to be really fun now to see him move further and further in the lightweight division. But what did you think of this one, man?
Well, the thing is King Green was egging Paddy on, pretty much on the feet, putting his hands down and stuff, and begging pretty much, daring Paddy to strike, and that's where it's well, you might as well keep it on the feet at that point, but
I think he would have been better on the feet,
I think
too.
Probably something what King Green was thinking is but it's he's shot for the takedown, so it's he's coming into Paddy's guard, and then obviously you saw it happen. It's I would think King Green would want to bring Paddy into his guard and make it, if you really want to go to the ground with Paddy Pimblett.
You know what, Tiz? I think about 99.9% of the people into MMA agree with you.
Yeah,
so,
that's
very true.
It's just kind of common sense, Exactly. That's just kind of exactly how we all kind of watched that fight thinking, because
I
if
wonder
you
if
really
he just
wanted
thought
to,
that Paddy wasn't that good.
Yeah,
you wonder if his ego is I'm going to just beat this dude easy. And then he takes him down and he gets caught in that triangle.
Yeah, if he really wanted to scramble with Paddy on the ground, then that obviously was not the way to go about it. I don't know if he just was
Bobby Green's not a bad wrestler or anything, but Paddy Pimblett, if there's one part of his game that you shouldn't mess with, it is his ground game. He's good off his back. Well, yeah, because he just
made that so easy for Paddy,
Yes.
And then he got put out. It's not like he tapped out. He got put out cold. So
yeah. I kind of
obviously,
that. you kind of have to respect that he took that. But, I mean, you could say whatever you want about King Green's fight IQ, and that's really been a question throughout his UFC career. But the way I'm choosing to look at it in the sense that, he may have weak fight IQ, and that's what put Paddy in that position. But Paddy did the best he possibly could have with that position by submitting him that fast.
Yeah.
People, they want to hate on Paddy Pimblett because how loud he is.
I'll be honest too. not to say that I was hating on Patty, but I think it would be fair for me to say like I had some doubts for Patty coming into this fight, kind of like beforehand how he's talking about like, why wouldn't I resign with UFC? I was kind of like thinking, well, you still have to win fights, and now he's got easily his toughest challenge yet with King Green across from him, and so I see how this fight starts, and Bobby Green is egging Patty on, he's daring Patty to strike and putting his hands down and stuff. So like that's kind of just like still those question marks that are there. It's like, well, the more Patty ascends up this division and stuff, like how much more technical are we gonna see Patty put it together pretty much, instead of obviously trying to bring guys into his wheelhouse. If he has to step out of his comfort zone a little bit and get fights done that way, then
yeah. I think that Patty, like, he definitely could improve on the feet, and I think he has been improving, even though it's not totally sound yet, but his ground game is not to be messed with. Clearly, he proved that in this fight versus King Green, but I kind of liked what he said in the post-fight presser. He said that with him, it's like people always are moving the goalposts, and I actually very much agree with that, because before this fight, people, Patty's haters were like, oh yeah, Bobby Green's going to beat him, he's going to expose him, and now he beats Bobby Green as easily as he did, and then now the people are like, oh, Bobby Green's washed, he shouldn't have shot for the takedown, but like, he still did that. He just submitted him in the first round. Like I said, the first guy to submit King Green since 2009, and he did it with ease. So I kind of respect that he feels that way, because I do agree with him. I think that people do move the goalposts with him. He's ranked. A lot of people thought he would never be ranked.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
It is what it is now with Patty. He proved himself in this fight. This was a really tough test, and now he called out Renato Moicano. But I think really the winner of Moicano versus Saint Denis, either of those fights would be a really fun one, in my opinion.
Yeah. Maybe it's a matter of who would we rather see him match up. I think
Moicano is more fun.
Yeah,
plus they have the banter already.
Exactly, yeah. So the build up to that would be fun, but I think with
Moicano.
Yeah, I think with BSD too is just that pace that Benoit Saint Denis brings already. I feel like if something like Patty, like having a backup and stuff and maybe circle more than he's comfortable doing would be interesting to see, and I think that's something BSD would bring out of him. So I think like something like Patty having to shoot for a lot more takedowns and stuff.
Then you think of Moicano. Moicano has elite jiu-jitsu, and I just said
I think those two would honestly have a great scrap on the feet.
On the feet, I feel like it would be interesting, but on the ground, Moicano, he's another one, man. His jiu-jitsu is elite, and Patty, he has a good ground game, but I don't know if it's as good as Moicano's. So you wonder if that fight would be more on the feet. That always seems to happen when it's like you got two really good grapplers. They can't take each other down, and they don't really keep each other down on the ground, and they end up having a slugfest on the feet. You remember when Ben Askren fought Damian Maia, and they were on the feet, and like Ben did that spinning back fist?
Yeah.
That he had a better chance of hitting you with than Damian Maia. And you were in New Jersey, they were in Singapore.
Yeah.
I love Funky Ben.
Yep.
I gotta say that.
I mean, shit. There's another fight on this card that we're gonna talk about that I think kind of falls into that. You were hoping to see a lot more fireworks and stuff on the feet, but it's just not who those two guys are between Manel Kape and Muhammad Mokaev.
Well, Manel is not
true.
Mokaev,
yeah.
We'll get to that. I don't want to get to because we got two more main card fights before we even get to it, so I don't want to go too far into that one, but. I guess we both agree then, though. Patty versus Moicano would be a fun one if Moicano gets through BSD, which he might. That's a good fight, too. I can't wait for that. I think that's in France in September. So, he'll be watching that fight very closely. But to move on real quick to Gregory Rodriguez, this isn't going to be a very long conversation. I said to you before the show, I just needed to bring this up because Gregory Rodriguez is not like a big name in his division or anything, but man, does he scare me. His power in his hands, it just looks like it hurts when he hits people. Like Christian Duncan, he had that big bump on his head, he was cut. And I'm like, oh, dude, like, even if you're getting paid, it just has to suck getting hit by RoboCop, right? And his ground game is really good, too. It's not like he's one-dimensional.
Like, fair play to Duncan for weathering that storm and getting it to a decision. But, like...
It's a brutal way to lose, though.
Yeah,
3 rounds getting hit by that guy.
Yeah, you got to that 3rd round, and, like, I think Duncan's corner gave him, like, that false hope that, hey, he's tired, he's expended so much energy beating you up to this point. Like, he's tired, but...
it's rough when the corner's in that mode.
Dude, it's like, clearly Duncan was the one who's more tired, and so...
Yeah, it's not exactly good on your cardio to get your ass beat, But, I just love Gregory Rodriguez. RoboCop is someone, when he fights... I always tune in, and I just wanted to give him his flowers. He gets a win on the main card. We don't really talk about him that much because he's usually on the late prelims of a fight night or the prelims of a big pay-per-view where it's just overshadowed. But this one, he was on the main card and he looked really incredible. So I don't know, I feel like a lot of the casual fans that maybe watch us, they don't know about a guy like Gregory Rodriguez, and I'm just like, if you guys want to get into a fighter, that dude is so fun to watch, win or lose. But, yeah, man, I was just happy about that one. If you have nothing to add, I'll go to the next one.
I'll just say, it's important for, someone like you who's obviously been watching a while to, be able to shed light on guys like this who have been fighting a while and have been, had this kind of style, doing this to guys for a minute now, but obviously... like you just said, have kind of just been, it's more or less just been on these,
under the radar.
Yeah, lesser fight night cards in the prelims and stuff. So it's when you get the main card opportunity, then it's cool to see him take advantage of it. So
let's hope he gets a good fight next. But the main card opener, to hop into that, I really loved this matchup. Very much a sleeper matchup.
That was a bigger fight than it got credit for, so it's good that was on the main card.
Well, to get into it, because obviously we haven't said their names yet, Arnold Allen, he picks apart Giga Chikadze, wins by unanimous decision, clear 29-28, and that's what all the judges scored it. And Arnold Allen is back in the title hunt. In terms of the fight, this was a pretty, your average Arnold Allen win, really, because he started off slow. He's, really the type of fighter who wants to get a read on his opponents in the first round. And then in the second and third, I thought he did great with his footwork, cutting off the cage, and really made Giga's explosiveness a non-factor in this fight. And I think that's ultimately what led him to win, because he just picked him apart on the feet. And to really do that to a good kickboxer like Giga, I was pretty impressed by that. But what did you think, man?
Well, I was kind of more or less thinking of the outside. What would I say? Kind of what was, like you just said, for Arnold Allen to win this fight, now get back to the title picture. This is a very important fight for just the featherweight division, in the sense that whoever really lost this fight, I think kind of really gets, really officially gets relegated to, a gatekeeper kind of status, which is sad because Giga Chikadze is one of these guys that, since I've started watching, so obviously, a newer fan, more or less, in the Apex era and stuff, he's one of these guys that I think, at least from, we'll say, even, so just to mention Apex again, from a smaller cage, is someone that benefits from that, and I thought has put on some very good performances up to this point, and someone I've enjoyed watching and stuff. So I think, obviously, both these guys have a lot to give still, obviously, and I think for Arnold Allen too, Arnold Allen just needed. I think both these guys honestly just needed a fight, and I thought it was it was the right fight to make, obviously, and so it's just it's huge for Arnold Allen to whoever for either of them, whoever got the job done here. So obviously Arnold Allen in this case to get it done and get his name back in that title picture, but that's I think there's definitely still I think more to be seen, I think, from both of them. And so now it's good to see Arnold Allen continuing to climb up the rankings now, and we'll see who they give Giga and stuff. I hope he's still obviously in a fine spot, but I think it's it's gonna be tough for him to get back.
Because this was a big shot for him. Like Arnold Allen, he lost to Max Holloway, and that when you lose to Max Holloway, I don't want to say it makes you like irrelevant a little bit, but for a while he was like the number one contender gatekeeper because he lost to Volkanovski both times, so he had to wait a while to get that title shot, and he was basically picking off all these young guys coming up. But it's good to see Arnold Allen kind of like getting back to his usual style and really getting back into the win column and into the title hunt. And like you talk about his next opponent, he said maybe Brian Ortega, but obviously Brian Ortega is fighting Lopez at the Sphere. So the other one he mentioned was Yair Rodriguez, and I'm so happy to get into this right now. I swear to God, dude. So I feel like a lot of you guys don't know this. Even the hardcore fans probably don't know about this. But he called out Yair Rodriguez, and that fight is not going to happen yet because Yair Rodriguez has actually been climbing Mount Everest. Now, you guys are thinking, what? Yeah, I'm very much serious. Go on Instagram, whatever. Yair Rodriguez is climbing Mount Everest currently.
Yeah, and his last post was late May.
Yeah, and apparently I looked this up on Google, so this is Google research. I have not climbed Mount Everest, for those who may get confused. It apparently takes like about 2 to 3 months. So, we're recording this on July 29th, so it's about 2 months into that. So hopefully Yair gets to the peak, and I was thinking this too. If he gets to the peak of Mount Everest, he could win the UFC title and get 17 title defenses. That will always be more impressive to me than anything he will do in the UFC. If he climbs Mount Everest, that's like an ultimate life achievement, man. So good for Yair. And I hope that when he gets back down and he gets back on his phone, he sees a text from Hunter Campbell saying, "Hey, buddy, you want to fight Arnold Allen at UFC Vegas 100?
After all this time.
Right? It's like a text from like a month earlier, like, "Hey, Yair, hope you're having fun in the mountains."
Wow. We should climb Mount Everest.
Me? Or both of us?
Both of us.
I was like, yeah, I don't know about that.
We own a record a pod at the peak of Mount Everest.
I'm like bad with
not knowing what's going on in the fighting.
No, dude, right? That's exactly. We'll be watching. We'll be listening to it on the radio.
That's where our next roadcast video will be.
That'd be so funny. Like episode 1, Boston. Episode 2, the summit of Mount Everest. Like that'd be so crazy. Like, dude, I'm bad with heights as it is. I hate being on a ladder at the top of a ladder, let alone Mount Everest. And like, if I'm being honest, if me and you tried to climb Mount Everest, we'd be one of those guys who freeze and the body's on the way up.
I don't know what I saw, but there was something along the lines of the base of Mount Everest, like, not even, like, being a climb. Like, that alone is just, like, a hike. And, like, then you start climbing. And, like, then you start climbing. And that alone is, like, dude, I would be satisfied just with that hike. Like,
it's kind of like when we went on the Stairway to Heaven hike. And
exactly.
Our friend Vondo, so for those who don't know, because Stairway to Heaven, it's like a hiking trail, like in New Jersey. And there's, like, a kind of like a flat part of the trail. And then you can walk up this huge, like, kind of like cliff. And it's almost the size of the Empire State Building straight up, so that's pretty tall. And it's a long hike, and our friend Vondo, he gets like midway through the part before we even get to the cliff, he's like, "Guys, I don't know if we should do this. Like, this might be a mistake. But maybe we turn back." And we're like, "Dude, we haven't even gotten to the real climb yet." And nothing. I'm not talking shit either because I was in a bad way midway up.
Dude, but you did it. You guys both did it.
And then what confused me, and I want to give you a chance to explain yourself publicly. I couldn't believe that you made it all the way up, no problem, and then on the way down is when you're like, I'm like, this is the easy part in a way, because so let's put this into context. I love how we're on an MMA show talking about our hike. I'm sure our followers really care. Yeah, I'm sure, right? I'm sure our audience really gives a shit. But it was like 98 degrees that day. We should say that, and we get maybe 55 to 60% up the cliff, and I didn't know that. And I'm starting to like actually get like exhausted. I'm like, I think I need to like really sit down. And I felt terrible. I felt like I was going to throw up. Thankfully, I didn't. But, and I'm thinking, like, man, I'm really washed. Like, we've been hiking for however long. Like, I can't believe I can't even get up this far. I'm like, yo, Brooke, how high up are we? How far up? And he goes, we just like hiked 60% of that. I'm like, what? I'm like, you're telling me that we just went up 60% of that cliff and didn't take a break? It's 98 degrees outside. Like, what are we doing? I'm like, I'm thinking I'm this like washed up loser. I'm like, man, I can't even get up 20% of the trail. He's like, no, we already did more than half of it. I'm like, why didn't you say that? Like, it's crazy, right? But yeah, and you know, I'm bitching about this. Yet Yair Rodriguez is currently climbing Mount Everest, so hats off to Yair, honestly.
Hats off to Yair.
Let's hope that him and Arnold Allen get a fight maybe near the end of 2024. But respect to Yair Rodriguez and respect to Arnold Allen for getting that win. But
featherweight division is probably might be the most fascinating in UFC.
Right? Fascinating is a good way to put it. Might not be the most stacked, but in terms of like the crazy things that happen, it's definitely interesting. I mean, remember Zabit a few years ago when he just retired? Like, what? This just random stuff always seems to happen at featherweight, and I love it. But, you know, we had plenty of other interesting things happening in other divisions, and to get into this fight between Muhammad Mokaev and Manel Kape, this was I don't understand how this was so early on the prelims, if I'm being honest. Huge grudge match. Mokaev wins it, an ugly fight, 29-28. Two of the judges scored it that, and then one judge scored it 30-27.
Yeah, okay, I'll stop you right there.
Do we just go into do we talk about the fight, or do we talk about what happened after?
Well, I mean, I'll touch on that scorecard real quick, because the 30-27 kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I didn't agree with that. I thought it was really close.
That seemed like messed up, especially for a guy who's now not even with UFC anymore. But that's obviously
that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation we'll talk about. But
I mean, in terms of the fight, though, they scrapped twice before they even got into the cage against each other, which is saying something.
Yeah, what the
But in the fight, you know, Mokaev got the win, and I can't really argue it. It was a close fight, but I did think he kind of had the upper hand. But I didn't like the dirty tactics and stuff, you know, especially I think it was the first round when he grabbed his shorts after he took him down. Dude, it's like, come on, man.
Mike Beltran laid into him.
No, I mean, he deserved it. That was as egregious as a shorts grab I've ever seen. Like, usually you see it's like a quick little thing. He was pulling his pants down, dude. It's just, I didn't love that from Mokaev. I mean, he's really impressive. His wrestling is good. He's not too bad on the feet, but Manel Kape is so good with his striking, and I think that's why Mokaev didn't want to strike with him that much. But in terms of this fight, it was definitely a little underwhelming, but it was interesting. And do we hop right in? Because I think the fight itself got overshadowed by what happened after it, because Dana White just randomly announces that Muhammad Mokaev will no longer be in the UFC, and his exact words were, I think the PFL is going to get a great undefeated guy. Good luck to him. And it's crazy because you could argue that this fight was a title eliminator, because at flyweight, there's a lot going on at the top, but it's like a revolving door in a sense. So this fight you'd think, would have bred another number one contender, and apparently not. Apparently the number one contender is going to be out of the UFC.
Yeah, well, sure, maybe by default, but how I feel about it, and we can go back to the Brazil card where it was even just announced that Steve Erceg would be the one fighting for the title. That at that moment told me, like, okay, because I felt the same way, like, okay, Muhammad Mokaev's still young. He hasn't put on the most spectacular performances yet to this point. Sure, should he be the one getting this opportunity? Yes, that's fair to say, but I think, you know, kind of like the UFC brass and myself as a fan, like, kind of see this in a similar way. So they want to give the more newer, fresher name Erceg that opportunity, and he obviously did a great job for what it was worth. So at that point, I was kind of thinking, like, well, for whoever hopefully Mokaev gets a nice spot next for his next fight. And yeah, so it's for, you know, just like talking about all the antics and stuff before this fight, kind of like, not to say setting himself up, but, you know, obviously fans are going to see what's going on beforehand, and they're going to obviously by like default gravitate towards this fight and be like, oh well, finally, like you put them both in the cage now and they're both gonna just let loose on each other, right? But
They did for like 10 seconds in the first round, and then like they kind of calmed down a bit.
yeah, dude. I think because how it was like I think both guys anyways just kind of needed like a spectacular sort of finish in a way, just a really good barn burner scrap. I think
That did not
was
happen.
needed from the both of them in this fight. Yeah, and that's not what happened. And now it's just all moves so fast because like the sport anyways is always looking forward and moves super fast and is a revolving door, but you don't expect a guy who, you know, who's seemingly that one win away from one or two wins away from a title shot, get one of those wins in a 30-20, one of the judges giving him a 30-27 as well. Like, you don't fucking, and then right afterwards it's like, well, he's not here anymore. Let's
Dude, I feel like Dana was just angry. He's just so
that's
mad.
insane. Yeah, that's
That caught me so off guard when I saw that he said that after the fights. He was like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be in the PFL." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like I was ready to talk about the
confused
fight
too.
kind of just being underwhelming and Mokaev being close to a title shot, and now instead the whole story is that Muhammad Mokaev is being let go by the UFC since his contract's up, so they're not going to re-sign him, and it's wild because he's undefeated and he's, his fights aren't entertaining, but he's looked pretty impressive for the most part. So it's wild to see them cut bait like they did, and it just seems like something's off. Like I don't think they really liked him that much, and I don't know if it maybe even is personally, because I don't know if you saw this. Eric Nixick, Cape's coach, he said that Mokaev sucker punched him before, and it's like, if that's the type of thing that he's doing, I kind of understand why the UFC kind of doesn't really want to deal with that, because Dana said the matchmakers don't even really favor him that much.
That's I guess what I'm trying to say. It's like, you set yourself up in that way. Like, you have to when that bell rings, pretty much you gotta deliver on all fronts. And it's like, yeah, you got the job done and you got your hand raised, but a lot of people, it's like how we're talking about only the aftermath is like how fans are remembering is like they're not really going to remember the performance, and it's like more what happened before and now what's happened afterwards, which sucks.
And to go full circle, that's kind of why you got to give a guy like Bilal Muhammad so much credit, because he doesn't have this huge fan-friendly style, but he did enough, and he beat the right guys, and he worked his way to get there, and he did it the right way.
Exactly.
He
gets nothing but hate, but obviously always comes into every fight with a game plan and executes it to a T. So it especially sucks for this to happen on flyweight, a division that obviously
needs guys
exactly, will take any any sort of true contender. So that would have, one of those guys would have obviously been Muhammad Mokaev. And yeah, it's just like I like that now that we've got something like Kai Kara France and Steve Erceg announced. So it's like it's like unfortunate because it's like
on a little bit, right?
Yeah, the division can move on, but it's like now you kind of take away like one less like option. So like, let's say the loser of those guys maybe would fight Mokaev in a way, or even the winner, because obviously Mokaev would now be coming off a win, and then he could take on maybe the winner of that. But it's like, I think of how Steve Erceg had just fought for the title and shouldn't be that far away from getting another title shot anyway. So if he beats someone like Kai Kara France, then that probably gets him right back there. But
it's just odd. It's a very odd way to see his UFC career end. And I kind of agree with Dana. Good luck to him. I think the PFL would be a good fit for him, honestly. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up there. So, if he does end up at the PFL, they're going to get a great undefeated guy, as Dana White said. So, by the way, I noticed you didn't grab the secret juice again. Good job.
Doing good with that.
Yeah, let's hope neither of us ever make that mistake, because I don't want to imagine what that tastes like. But, that's it for UFC 304 for what we're going to talk about. Really fun card throughout. We could have talked about so many of the prelims too.
At least how I feel. You might feel the same way, but I guess at least for me, because last week was literally just not only was it just a boxing match, but it was a Jake Paul boxing match.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
I can't
God,
tell you
yeah.
how nice it feels to be back talking a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I'm glad that a pay-per-view came right after that, honestly. Like, not that we hate the fight nights or anything, because those are fun too, but, like, a pay-per-view recap, there's nothing quite like it. Like, I don't know about you. I enjoy doing those the most out of all of our podcasts, because there's always so much to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, though, too, because we got UFC Abu Dhabi coming up. I'm super stoked for that card. The main event, Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov, which is an insane matchup at bantamweight. Could even be a title eliminator after Sugar Sean fights Marab at the Sphere. And I love that matchup. Shout out to Corey Sandhagen, too, for taking a fight with a guy who nobody seems to want to fight at bantamweight. So I respect Corey for that.
I think Corey, he's right there for that title shot.
Him and
right
O'Malley, that's a fight that I need to see. I'm like I love technical striking. Like remember when Corey Sandhagen fought TJ Dillashaw? Like that's one of my favorite fights of all time, which I don't know if a lot of people would agree with that, but it was just such like a chess match, but it was a fun chess match, and I feel like that's what O'Malley versus Sandhagen has the potential to be. But even like besides that, originally the co-main event was going to be Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque, which I was super stoked for, but Nick Diaz had to pull out due to travel issues. I saw a comment, I thought this was funny. It said that he probably found out that he can't smoke weed in Abu Dhabi, and I'm like, I honestly would not be shocked if that's part of it. No. But no, I don't know what happened there, but it sucks. I hope that they get rebooked, or maybe like Nick Diaz gets another matchup versus somebody who's in like a similar position. But they replaced that fight pretty quickly with Shara Bullet versus it's like Michel Oleksiejczuk. Yeah, I don't think it's pronounced Michael. Because there's no I think it's like Michal. So I'm bad with Russian names and Polish names.
No, it's all right. After UFC 302, I will refer to him as now. I did call him Michael, but now obviously
the guy
Michelle.
Who got armbarred.
Michelle. Oh yeah. So
I thought that's what you were gonna say. I'm like, that was like probably the most hype finish of the card besides the main event.
No,
one of the only finishes.
I think honestly, like, I might have not been the most up to speed with Michelle before his fight with Kevin Holland, but for him to give the fits to Kevin Holland that he did on the feet, I think now with this matchup with Shara Bullet is gonna, it is a very good test. I think he's gonna bring that aggression and that power obviously to Shara. We'll see if he's able to overwhelm Shara in that sense, because we obviously just talked about how I think the jury's probably still out on Shara's striking.
No, it's grappling.
That's right. Okay, so
I think like Michel, he's a good fighter and he's a good striker. And I honestly feel like this is going to be a fight where Shara can really showcase his skills. Because remember after the last one, I was like, you can clearly see just by his technique that his striking is elite. But you want to see him prove it against somebody who also has like either good striking or is just a good fighter overall. And like, Michel, he might not be like the greatest grappler in the world, but he is a pretty good striker. So it's like if you have doubts about Shara Bullet's striking, if he can get through this fight the way he's gotten through the last few fights,
I think that's fair to say.
It's pretty impressive if he does that, because it would not be easy to dominate him on the feet like that. So I'd be super impressed. But there's so many other fights on this card, man. Like we got Chito Vera fighting Davison Figueiredo. I can't wait for that fight. And the fact that it's 3 rounds, I feel like that's just gonna be a car crash. So I can't wait for that. We got Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa at welterweight. I think that's going to be an interesting fight. I think it's a good matchup for both guys, honestly, at this point.
I want to talk about the Chito Vera and Figueiredo fight. Sure. Like, just for how many bantamweight fights has been for Figueiredo now? 2.
Yeah, Garbrandt and Font.
So yeah, for
both of those were very fun.
For him to seemingly already be like that much closer to the title, and now if he can beat a former contender in Chito, like. Man,
he's one fight away.
That would bring such a, I think that would bring such a a bigger crazy dynamic to the division, and it would be really interesting to see going forward. And then Michael Chiesa and Tony Ferguson. Like honestly, I feel like this is kind of a fight like both these guys need. Honestly, I think both of them can honestly I really don't feel like they have that much to lose, honestly, at this point. I think this is probably like a fight for just his fans that, especially people that have been watching for a while, these two are now crossing paths at this later point in their career, and they're both guys with just obviously a relentless style to them, and I hope they both bring it.
Tony Ferguson's obviously a fan favorite, and like Michael Chiesa, for those who like really watch MMA, like he's one of the good guys. You know what I mean? Like you can't really, I don't know anybody who hates Michael Chiesa. Like there's nothing you can point to that you could hate about the guy. He just seems like such a cool dude, and his grappling is just outstanding when it's on, man. But yeah, I can't wait for that fight. I think the Vera versus Figgy fight is going to be insane too. I agree with you. That could be fight of the night, man. I think the winner of that versus Peter Yan would be a very fun fight. That's just my personal opinion. But then the last fight I kind of wanted to just mention, another one that I kind of just want to give like a bit more of like a platform for than like maybe more people would, because you see all these big names, maybe people aren't going to gravitate towards this one. But Mackenzie Dern versus Lupe Godinez, in terms of the scrambles on the ground, I think that's going to be a really fun fight. So if you're a grappling fan, you definitely want to tune into that one, because I think that'll be a good one. But, you know, can't wait to cover that next week. This has been a fun one, and we'll see you guys then.
Feels just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you